G'day and welcome back to my hobby room. Now, I've got a special thing for you. We polled my Patreons and YouTube members. Yeah, but don't worry, there wasn't much pain involved. We did use some lubricant. But they came back with a poll, which is just a questionnaire, right? And they said, look, Harry, how about you unbox some kits this weekend? We'd really love to see some of your ships. So, here we go. What have I got for you? Well, I have got a surprise. Look at this. This is an Airfix Vasa, and it's a white box, right? You know how much I like white boxes. Well, you do if you watch the channel. Click like, subscribe, all those buttons. Watch the channel. Airfix white box, and I always say these are the better kits to get, right? Go and get an old white box. It's much better than new red boxes. They're cheaper. The mouldings are fresher. It's all really good. Okay. Put your money where your mouth is, Harry. Here's a red box, right? Now, that white box is about a 1985, right? This red box is about 2015. So they're 30 years apart. All right, do your math. So is it worn out? Is it like the Airfix Victory, which is dreadful? If you get the new red box, it's all flash and barnacles and tentacles and it looks bloody dreadful, right? And a lot of people just get put off. They go, this is terrible. Not going to build Airfix ships ever, which is a shame because they're lovely kits. Or is it still as good as the white box? Let's find out this time. Is red box better in this case? Or is white box the way to go? Roll music. Here are both the kits, and as you can see, they fill up practically my whole workbench. There's an A1 blue mat here, and these boxes are huge. So we'll lose one of them. That'll be the new red box. And we'll have a look at the nice old white box from Airfix and see what it's like. What was it like way back in the 80s? Oh, for so many of you, weren't even born. For me, I was already old to get married. In we go. The first thing is the instructions. Now, these are the original instructions, but they're not the ones that would have been in this box because they're not yellow, because they would have been. I had to find these online, and the ones I found were very yellowed, and I've printed those out so that I've got an actual set of pretty well the instructions from the 50s. There would have been earlier instructions because this kit first came out in 1971, and possibly the 71 were the instructions where it's just all one great big page and you kind of fold it all out and you've got to work your way around it. I have managed to find a copy of those. I know I've found that for other kits, but these are okay. You get to the size rat line drawings. So really handy if you're making rat huts, because I just measure straight off the drawings and I know how to build my tools. As an aside, not that I'm trying to sell you some, full rigging guide. It's fairly full. I mean, it's enough to make the ship look really good, but obviously there's a lot more rigging than that you would use. That's essentially a little bit of standing, a little bit of running, and you would have just got black and white paint guide. It tells you the colours, obviously. You know, it's only black and white in its representation, and you've got to try and figure out which cross-hatchy pattern is which colour. Now, Airfix gives you plastic sails, which I'm never much of a fan of. They get squished and popped out of shape. You might be able to put some hot water on them and then try and get them to spring back a little bit, but they always look kind of crumpled and horrible. And I don't know, they look very plasticky when you put them on, because they're just plastic scales, and they've just got some, reefing on them and some sort of squiggly bits. But honestly, it's so much nicer if you either just leave them off completely and have the ship just rigged with the spars, or you make your own sails, as I did with the Bounty. Now, this box did not have a bag, and it's hard to know if originally it did come with a bag. All the modern Airfix stuff is like one big bag, and that's pretty well how they've done it for like half a century. That's how it is. Now, the plastic is the lovely old brown Airfix plastic. It's really good. It's got a slight brittleness to it, but that means you can firmly cut it. It's not soft. I don't like the new soapy soft stuff. This is nice and firm. It shows detail very well. You see all the nails are shown there. Well, they shouldn't be. They should be plugs, because the nails should be underneath, and they put little caulking plugs over the top of them. They're all shown. All the strakes are in there. Nicely done. Same thing here. You get all this lovely detail. The whole idea is just so that you can paint it and it all pops up, you know. It'll be overscale, but I mean, you're working in 1 to 144th. No flash. If you remember my St. Louis kit, which is much later, and a repop of a repop, and all of this was just Flash City, and I had to cut it all out, which you can do. I don't mind doing. But if you don't have to do it, well, that's much better. So it's nice and clean. This is what you would expect. It's a 1970s mould, and we're only looking at 1980s, probably about 15 years later, a moulding of it from that initial tooling. So it's still in good nick, still in really good nick. No little hints in here. Sometimes you get dates inside. No, not much at all. You don't have the cannon ports open. So the interior is just not seen at all, and that's a bit of an Airfix sort of thing, and it was typical of this period, and normally I just sort of black those out. Yes, you could put in some false decks, and you could cut those out and put full cannons in and go to town, and in the end, it'll look exactly the same, because you won't see anything. It'll all be dark in there. But if you want to do that, you can. Some people do, and they get all excited about it. That's okay. That's all fun. It's all modelling. The beak is quite pretty. You've got all the little figures there that sit along it. They'll paint up beautifully, and all the very, very similar to the St. Louis in that respect. It's a similar sort of idea. They were based on the Dutch ships of the time, so they've got very similar features. In fact, I got all the hull halves out one day and lined them up and took a photo. I might try and put it here if I can find it. And you can see they all look very similar for this period. So this is the 17th century, early 17th century. Nice big sprue. Now, at least here, this is the point where Airfix started putting frames, right? Before that, everything's just on open sprues. So you just get a line, right? You get a sprue line, and then everything's off that, and it's all hanging loose. And of course, it doesn't take much, and everything snaps and falls off, which is a real bugger. But at this point, we've got frames, which is brilliant, which is like the modern kits, which means everything's held together nicely and protected. So we've got no snapping and no breakages there for all the dead eyes. And they look quite good, actually. But of course, I would replace those with wood ones or 3D printed ones. The deck is pretty rudimentary and fairly sort of basic. But again, I would replace that with wood veneer planking and put my planks on. The fighting platforms, they're all nice. The big lamp at the stern. Now again, like St. Louis, it's overscale. It's too big. But it'll paint up beautifully and look nice. I've seen people completely make them scratch the correct size, and they look good too. Your boat for going ashore, it's quite nice. It's quite big, considering. But, there's a whole lot of sailors on this thing. We've got a little bit of flash creeping in here. It's the first time we've actually seen any. A little bit of flash around there of those upper dead eyes that go on the fighting tops. Yeah, they would need cleaning up, but it's not really a big one. We've got some little tops here, which I believe would go, yeah, they do. They go into these sections here. So they're just the little covers there over the toilets of the privies there for the Swedish ruddy sailors, So they could go in there and get a little bit of air while they're doing la boop. Yeah. This one is all your masts and your spars, right? Yards, if you like, not yard arms. People often say that's a yard arm. Well, no, it isn't actually. A yard arm is a little thing that hangs off the side of it. It's a little arm that extends if you want to run a stud sail, right? And yeah, they'd hang you from a yard arm. They would extend a line from where the sail was, and that would be, well, extend a rod, a little spar, right? And that's a yard arm, and you'll be hung from that. You'll be hung from the actual yard. There's no bloody room. There's a sail there and rigging and everything in the way, and the guy will be bleeding, splattering all over the deck. The idea is to hang them over there so they'll fall in the water, So they're all basic, simple, but they'll do their job, and they've got enough detail. And we've got cannons, lots and lots of those. I've stolen a few, which I needed for the St. Louis, but I'll 3D print in the future, whatever I need. Cannon trucks, all the cannon port lids. They're fairly simple, and I've seen people completely scratch those and add extra, but all I do is probably add a few little notches to show where they've sort of been nailed together, that sort of thing, yeah. And these, of course, are capstans. Yeah, they're the little pieces that sit on top of the capstan. This is what the sailors will push, right? And there's a little piece there's probably part of the capstan. And the reason is things like the anchors, right? They're huge. They're bigger than a man. They weigh as much as your car, you know. They're absolutely enormous, great big heavy things. And there's no way one sailor can do it. So you need a leverage system, and then you need at least sort of 2 or 3 guys or more, and they all push a capstan, right? Which basically is a little thing where it's the ropes all wound up inside it through a pulley system out to anchors and sheets and ropes and sails and things, and the guys will push those around and they'll pull up sails and pull down ropes, and they will put the anchor into the water and they'll take it out again. All done with leverage. Yep, all done with leverage. Very clever. And this part is really nice. This is basically the stern. Okay, so includes the transom part and the balconies and all the, you know, the filigree and the detail there. So you can see in there all the lovely detail. So, you know, there's heraldic arms and there's lines and things. And Airfix did a really nice job, and the reason is they had the actual ship, or what was remaining of it, in Sweden. This is the thing, because the claim to fame of this ship is, right, 1628. After it's put together, and the king has insisted that he wants as many cannons as he can, right? And these are big heavy bronze cannons, you know, so he's got cannons everywhere and too many of them, and they were too high in the hull. But this thing looked absolutely fantastic. He's going, look, I'm fantastic because my ship has got more cannons than anybody else, and look at them all. And that was its downfall, because out it goes from the harbour, maiden voyage, hardly more than, you know, sight from the coast. It could still be seen, and then there's a gale. Now a gale is not a storm, it's not a hurricane, it's not a big heavy wind, it's a bit more than a breeze, but it's not much, and that's all it took, is this light gale, and the ship went, oh dear, over she went a little bit, and because she was so top heavy, she'd hit the point of no return. Right, it couldn't right itself, because with ships they're designed with the centre of gravity so they can go over and they'll bounce back. You know, like a buoy. Have you ever seen a buoy, or buoy, or whatever the American calls them, which sit out in the water? They can be kicked over and then they always right themselves because the centre of gravity is very low. But if you've got great big heavy cannons up the top, your centre of gravity gets up further. So there's a point when you tilt where there's a point of no return, and over she goes. So the bloody thing went over, belly flopped into the water, splash. Absolute disaster. And it sat there for about 300 and odd years, you know. And then in the late 50s they started looking for it, and in 1961 they pulled her up, dried her out, sorted everything out, and they've put it on display. So this is a ship we actually have. It's very rare for these sort of ships that we actually have one, and we have it. It's a little bit sort of warped and out of shape and everything, but basically they did the best job they could to, you know, reconfigure it, put it all together. You can go visit it today. So the dimensions are correct, because Airfix got the plans and got the information from the museum there in Sweden. And so that's the thing. It is actually the right shape and size, which is very, very rare for these ships. Most of the time we're going off paintings and drawings, and they're all a bit artistically interpreted. You know, that if you've seen some of the drawings of the ships, they're all out of whack and shape. We know that's not right. Also included in my kit are all the flags. Don't they look nice? So they are quite beautiful, and I would put a little bit of aluminium foil behind them, right, and glue all that on, glue them up, and then I can bend them into pretty well any kind of wobbly shape that I want. So they'll look really good. But they're very nice indeed. So there you go. Get those in the new kit as well. They're probably exactly the same print. So let's now have a look at the kit from 30 years after that, which is the one from 2015, the Red Box, and see if there's much difference. So here's our Red Box, and you notice something very different about it. It is an end opening box. It's not a top opening box like Airfix, you know, does for everything. This is an end opening box. Almost thinks they stole this from Revel, you know. Is it the Revel Wasa? They do a Wasa as well, so I don't think it's the same kit. Now, all in one bag, and sails and instructions, and look, slightly bent and wrecked flags. Actually, they look a little better printed. They do look a little nicer. So I think the The edges are much firmer, it's much clearer, so they're actually much nicer ones. So yeah, but all bent out of buggery for being in there. Now, because this is a special edition, I got glue and a paintbrush and a whole lot of paints. And yeah, that's good. That's fine. Yeah. Won't be using those. And you get the more modern sort of thing. The instructions are the much more modern instructions because we got, you know, GB for Great Britain, F for France, and D for Deutschland, I suppose, and E for Espanol, and I don't know, and S for somewhere else. Somewhere else, yeah. If I've got any of those wrong, no doubt you'll let me know. Oh, look, and then it goes on and on and on here. So again, we've Great Britain. We've got NL, well, it must be Netherlands, and DK and SF and PL. That's probably Poland. GR, oh, I don't know what that is. There's so many countries covered these days because we are diverse. Yes, we're so diverse these days. We're going to waste the first 3 pages doing all that. So yeah, that's fine. That's okay. That's how it is. Okay, and then it's the same instructions again, but they're smaller and they've kind of been crunched down into a portrait mode A4. So same again, only different. Does break the mast into individual masts with the yards on, so it's a little easier to digest. So a lot of people sort of get a bit frightened about the old Airfix stuff where it's like, here's everything, do it, and you've got to work your way through. But as usual, everything's pretty well in order. Airfix Kits, part 1 is the one you start with, you work your way through to part 2, part 3, part 4, all the way up to part 200 and whatever, and that's the last part you put on. So once you know that bit of information, away you go. Now, I noticed there's these little rings here, which I wonder what they were, and they're actually on these flags, and it's a bit of livery there that you can put on. So you've just spruced it up a little bit. Actually, it wouldn't be that hard to paint, really. It's not that detailed. So there you are. There you have it. So same but different. One big thing is you get the instructions here to use the loom, right? And I've covered this loom in other videos. It's okay, you can do your rat lines with it. It wastes a lot of cotton, like as opposed to my rat harps, where a few people even complain, oh, there's a bit of weightage in the back. It is nothing. This wastes about 4 times as much cotton as my rat harps do. And because it's built to one size fits all, it's never quite right. They're always just a little bit out. They're, you know, it's not cricket. But you get the same diagram here which says this is how your outline should look when you're finished, and you've got all the instructions there for how to knot up and set up the loom. And again, you've got the same sort of final diagram there. So the instructions are sort of the same. Mine just has the sales and the painting guide on the last page. But as I say, if you do get the new kit, the Vintage Classic, I believe, I've seen videos from other people, you get full colour drawings, pictures, so you know exactly, you know, which one of these. Otherwise, you've got to try and figure out which one of these sort of cross-hatchy things is which. And best thing is just to do some referencing. There's plenty of references for this ship. As I said, there is an actual one. Now, the sales are not as bad in this this kit. Of course, it's 30 years younger, so they're actually to shape. They're actually a lot firmer. They're a lot thicker, so that would actually makes them stronger, but then they're going to look plasticky. So again, I don't like that. I don't use that. Now, I won't rip everything out of the bag because at a cursory examination, the plastic is nice. It actually feels more like the old plastic than the modern Airfix plastic. The detail is virtually identical. Okay, you just get that big loom thing in there. They give you some string to come out. Honestly, this is on par with the other kit. A little bit of bendiness there with one of these spars. Yeah, the plastic's a little bit softer. Yeah. So the yards there, they're a bit rubbery. Yeah, I can feel it. The other one, they're got a bit of bend in them, but these are really bendy. This is like bananas. Eh? Goodness me. So the plastic is a bit softer. It's not exactly the same, but it is better than the Indian plastic that they've been using lately. Because I believe they did change the formula and try to return to something closer to what it was like for these sort of kits. At least that is the rumour I've heard from people over in Blighty telling me about these kits. There you go. That's just a quick look there, because really it's the same kit. It's just slightly different plastic. Detail still seems to be nice, and yeah, you get a big loomy thing so you can make yourself a tapestry. So there you have it. Red box, white box. Well, I prefer the instructions in the old one, but the new one, especially if you get Vintage Classic out now and you get coloured instructions. Yeah. But honestly, the plastic doesn't look much different. It might be a tiny bit softer because it's slightly different formula. But Airfix has gone to great lengths to use some of the old formulas again in the Vintage Classic release. At least I believe that's what they've done. At least in the case of my Golden Hind, the plastic looked a lot better. It isn't the new plastic, the stuff from India, that horrible grey stuff, right? It was a browning kind of thing like Airfix used to have, and it seemed quite nice. And I know when I did the test fit on that, it was really good. It was nice to work on. So has Airfix finally learnt their lesson regarding their sailing ships? Because, I mean, there's nothing else around like them. Like, there are so few new sailing ship kits that actually come out, right? Hella and Revel probably the only ones that actually put something out in the last 30 years. All the Airfix stuff is old kits, rebox. So I think they're really making an effort to clean up the moulds they have and put out these vintage classics and making sure you're getting quality. So I'd like to know, has anybody got a vintage classic Airfix HMS Victory? Have they fixed it? Have they got it right? I hope so, because it is a joyful kit, but its reputation has been ruined through years and years and years of dreadful reboxing on the red boxes. So there you are. But in this case, look, you can go either way. It is much cheaper, of course, like 2 shekels, 6 shekels, or you're probably paying 7 or 8 shekels, you know, depending on whatever they want to charge at the moment because of the economy, right? The bloody economy, right? Well, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So anyhow, for my money, the white box is still the way to go because 2 shekels, how can you go wrong? Sure, some things are missing, but they're easy enough to fix. I would do my own rigging anyway, so I don't really need that loom and all the rest of it. But there you have it. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, like, circumscribe, pacify, whatever. Push some buttons. Seek, kill, destroy. I don't know. What do they stand for? Who knows? Who cares? Just click buttons. It's your only job. And if you can, buy me a curry, because that helps support this channel. Give me the money so I can go and buy some more kits and compare them for you. So there you go. That is my look at comparison between the two. Not really much of a comparison. Same kit, essentially. Even though it's 30 years apart, basically the same kit. Wonderful. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe that'll get a few more people into buying Airfix kits and building sailing ships, because sailing ships are so much fun. Don't be scared off by the rigging. I can sell you a tool to fix that. Yeah, there's more of that next time when we actually do some rigging. All right. Goodbye from Australia, and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini. Yes, Mace, that was a good video, wasn't it? Yes. At least it wasn't about making wood things that smell and everything. No. Guess there will be fish. We'll go get you some fish.